Hello, thank you for finding this video. Based on the title, you can probably imagine what the next few minutes are going to be about. I'm a lifelong Texan. I'm a lifelong Houstonian on top of that. I love this city. I love this city for all the reasons everyone else loves this city, but one of the main reasons I love this city is we live in a giant forest, and it's a beautiful forest that we live in. And it allows us to be the fourth largest city in the nation, living in wilderness that most people wouldn't understand or appreciate. So I know what makes Houston nice, and one aspect of why we chose to live where we live is because of the trees, is because of the bayou, is because of the beauty that surrounds some of those areas. So living on the bayou is good and bad. I live on the bayou. I've lived on the bayou for almost 10 years. I flooded 3 years ago. That's bad. But I've had 10 beautiful years of living out here. And again, I'm in the middle of a city. Trees surround me. Trees used to surround me. So about a year ago, I'm making this video October 10th, 2020. About a year ago in January, I called Centerpoint, casually called Centerpoint like you're supposed to. And I said, hey, Centerpoint, there are some trees growing by my power lines, and I need you to come out and trim them, please. And they said they'd send somebody out. A couple months later, I remember getting a knock at my door, and it was a tree crew from Centerpoint, and they said they wanted to look at the backyard. I gave them access to the backyard, and they looked at my backyard, and they basically said, yeah, we'll deal with it later or whatever. As soon as I show you the yard, you may have an idea of why they did that. And then, you fast forward through the summer. I spoke to the neighbor that lives on the other side of my fence. The neighbor, during a storm, saw some sparks on our power lines and called into Centerpoint and said, hey, there's some sparks on the power lines. There's a tree branch that's rubbing up against the power lines. Y'all may want to deal with it. No action was taken by Centerpoint. So fast forward to September 20th, last month. We had a storm. It wasn't a hurricane. It was just a storm, a lot of rain. The backyard, someone called to Centerpoint, probably one of my neighbors, and they said there are sparks in the power lines. So at 1 a.m. that night, I get a knock on my door from Centerpoint. They said, we need to look at your backyard. I said, okay, look at my backyard. And they said, hey, we've got to do some trimming because there's some sparks that are being caused by some brushing. And I said, okay, you can trim. It was 1 a.m. I was asleep. I made a mistake. I should have never let them do that. And I guess that's what I'm getting at, is never ever let Centerpoint in your backyard. But we'll eventually get to that. So I hear chainsaws in and out of sleep from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., and I'm thinking naively that they're being careful. And that's why they're taking so long, because they're being careful to take down only what they need to take down. I was so wrong about that. I couldn't have been more wrong about that, in fact, because what I woke up to, I would describe as destruction. I would describe as indiscriminate chopping down of multiple trees that didn't have to go. Some of them not even close to the power lines, in fact. Anyways, the reason I'm making this video is because this happened to me, and this is bad, and I'm going to share my story, and I don't want it to happen to you, and I don't want it to continue to happen to our city, because it's one of the aspects that makes us a great city. So I wake up, I see the destruction, and let's go look at the destruction right now. I don't use words like destruction lightly. It's destructive what they did to my yard. I'll start by kind of describing my yard. I am on a ravine. I understand that. I understand Centerpoint's hesitance in the past to get back here and trim lines because it's not easy. And frankly, it's dangerous. But frankly, that's their job as well. I'm not allowed to trim these power lines per their website as soon as they grow within 10 feet of the power line. So I couldn't even pay anyone to do this. I'm not allowed to. So I did what I was supposed to do. I called Centerpoint. So here's my yard, here's the yard, and then it looks down on this ravine here. This ravine is probably 30 feet below the level that you see right here. And the destruction starts almost immediately. The power lines, I know the power lines are right there in the middle of my yard. This is a 16,000 square foot lot. Why is this branch down? This branch is not within 20 feet of that power line. Why would Centerpoint leave the top of this giant tree dangerously leaning up against a live tree that now seems to have a dangerous lean to it that didn't have that lean before Centerpoint did their work back here. Per Centerpoint's website, when they take down a tree, they're supposed to take it down to the very bottom. They left this stump here. It's probably 3-foot stump, 3 feet wide. That's the other tree. You can see they put that red tag there to mark it as a tree that needed to be taken down. Why would they take this tree down and just leave it down? They took this tree down and chopped this tree up into pieces. They took that tree down, chopped that tree up into pieces. Why would they leave this stump 3 feet up off the ground with a tree just dangling dangerously from a vine like this? This tree wasn't even close to the power lines, and they took it down, callously just took it down for reasons I'm still having a hard time understanding or getting an explanation from. Look at that stump over there, 3 feet up off the ground. They left trash. Their Centerpoint team was kind enough to leave trash behind. Look at this tree that they left. Half of it's dangling on my side of the fence. The other half is on the neighbor's side of the fence. Centerpoint thought leaving things like this, random stumps, as far as you can see, they thought this was okay. They thought this is how we are going to protect this area. Here's another tree that's down. I don't know why they took this tree down. But the one that angers me the most, even though it's not a big tree, that little skinny tree right there is 30 feet away from the power lines. Why take down that tree? I feel like that's just to be mean. I mean, there's no other reason to take down that tree right there. That was a nice tree that was growing and giving some shade, and it's all gone now. So I call Centerpoint, as one would do, because, hey, y'all left a mess in my yard. Can you come please clean it up? That's not gonna happen. No. Centerpoint's policy is if it's, quote, an emergency situation, they are entitled to do whatever they want to do, and you, as the homeowner, are responsible for cleaning it up. However, if Centerpoint comes out and does regularly scheduled tree trimming, they are responsible for removing the debris. So had Centerpoint come out in January, when I asked them to, had Centerpoint come out when my neighbors called and asked them to, they wouldn't have had to come out during this emergency situation, and they wouldn't have left the mess in my yard. And more importantly, they would have trimmed up the trees properly and removed the debris properly, as opposed to just taking them down indiscriminately. I spoke to someone at Centerpoint. His name was Ray Melliton. And Mr. Melliton was a nice man. But Mr. Melliton is really good at giving bad news in a nice way, because that's really what Centerpoint does. They have policies on their websites that they do not follow in reality. My yard should never be left that way. And there are many issues Centerpoint has on their website, many points they show you that state they should never leave my yard in that dangerous situation. But they did. And furthermore, they're considering my job an emergency job, even though our power was on when they knocked on my door. I believe the power was on in the neighborhood. I don't know why they considered it an emergency that night when it wasn't an emergency in January, and it was an emergency later in that spring. So, you know, this has been stressful. I'm just gonna pay to get rid of it. It's gonna be a couple $1,000s, unfortunately. The stress isn't worth it. But my hope is whoever is watching this video, don't go through what I just went through. Make sure you never let Centerpoint on your backyard. And if you do, you better be following them very, very carefully, because they don't work with a scalpel. They work with a machete. They work with the biggest chainsaw you can imagine. Do not call Centerpoint and ask them to trim your trees. Make it official. Send them an email. Fill out a form on a website if that's what it takes. But do not call, because those calls, I don't believe, are logged. They may be logged as far as it's on a to-do list, but those calls didn't help me. Those calls didn't help my neighbor. Those calls definitely didn't help the trees that are now falling in my yard. And those calls are going to forever change the way my yard looks. Make it official. Don't let Centerpoint in your yard. understand they are there to do things the easy way, not the right way. And if you want to make sure things are done the right way, then either get them done yourself, or when Centerpoint is around, make sure you're there to watch them, because they'll try to take every shortcut they can. Mr. Melleton, I appreciate you calling me back. I will say that you were responsive. However, the report you state has some inaccuracies in it, as we went over. I know that's not going to help me. I know that I'm wasting my time continuing to argue with you guys. And I know you have a lot of other people you have to deal with. I just want you guys to see some of the ramifications of the actions or lack of actions that you take. I will continue to love my city. I will continue to love this yard, because there's a lot more trees back there. But I will forever look at Centerpoint a little bit differently, that's for sure. And I urge anyone that has trees to get them looked at, to trim yourself if you can, and then to stay on Centerpoint if you can't. Thanks for watching my video. Go Houston.